Welcome back to Your Fantasy Nerd, and today we're going to be talking about a comparison here between, yet again, two guys who are being drafted in very similar spots. Yes, that's Calvin Johnson and Julio Jones, both being drafted around mid-second round picks. And personally, I think one of these guys is being vastly underrated. I would actually consider taking one of these guys as a late first-round pick, and it's Calvin Johnson. I'll tell you why. Calvin Johnson, people make the argument that he's old, he's getting up there in age. Are you kidding me? The wide receiver stays around so much longer than the running back position. He's only 29 years old. He won't even be 30 until his Week 4 regular season game. So I think the argument that he's too old or that he's getting up there in age is preposterous. I think it's dumb. The second thing is the injury concerns. Okay, he was injured last year for 3 games, but really he was out 5 games, I would say. When you look at the 11 games he played, he actually had 1,060 yards and 8 touchdowns. But really, the 2 other games that he played, 19 total yards. I mean, people look at it and they say 13 games, 1,077 yards. That's really not a productive season. He really only played 11 games, let's be honest. Against the Jets in Buffalo, he was not there. His ankle was not holding up. He only had 19 yards, as I said, in those games. So I think that's ridiculous. And then one more thing to add on to that whole, he's 29 years old, he's too old. How about Andre Johnson 5 years ago? He was 29 years old. In 13 games, he had 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns on the Houston Texans. So I think that's ridiculous. How about Randy Moss, who are, I think, 2 guys who are really similar to each other in Calvin and Randy. Randy, in his age 30 season, 23 touchdowns, 1,500 yards. There's no way Calvin Johnson is out of it yet. I love Calvin. But now we're just going to quickly look at Julio here to maybe give a little bit more well-rounded perspective on why I like Calvin better. First of all, Julio Jones was the 7th wide receiver in fantasy, or I believe 8th wide receiver, in fantasy football last year. I have him rated at 7th this season, so he's a slight decrease, slightly lower than Calvin Johnson is to me. The thing about Julio Jones that I think people are misleaded to is that the fact that they have Matt Ryan, first of all, they now have a run game, I think, with Tevin Coleman. Last year they had absolutely nothing in the run game. It was Jaquiz Rodgers and sometimes Devontae Freeman. I mean, Matt Ryan, give you a quick stat, Matt Ryan threw 628 times last year, second most in the entire NFL. I think there's no way that happens again. Julio Jones was heavily leaned on last year just because they had to. I mean, they had absolutely no run game. I see Matt Ryan's attempts coming way down. In the top 10 probably still, but not in the top 5. So I think if you're looking at these 2 guys between Calvin and Julio, and you're considering taking Julio, let me ease you out on here, okay? Calvin Johnson is still one of the best wide receivers in football. I think there's no question he has a bounce-back season. If he can play a full 16 games, which I think he can, because in training camp there's reports that he's feeling great. He's feeling like his old macho self again. I think there's no way that Calvin Johnson does not produce 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns. But yes, folks, that'll wrap up episode 4 of our comparisons between 2 players. Go ahead and comment. You guys agree, disagree? Go ahead and tell me why you think Julio will be better. I will tell you why not. So leave us a like as well as subscribe if you want to see more information at Your Fantasy Nerd. So thanks for watching, folks.